Well, hello. I want to welcome you to another exciting episode of Pens in Use. I'm starting out a little bit differently because you see up beside me, I have last week's Pens in Use. And there's a good reason. Last week I was using a Oster pen Kala pen, and it wrote Aurora Blue Black, kind of like a fire hose. And I was just curious to see what would happen to it. So I left this notebook open all week. I moved it, but I haven't actually closed it or touched it. And I thought we'd just take a look at that, and then we'll get into our regular video. So, right here is the Oster pen Kala. Nice close-up. You can see that, well, you really can't see. There's a little bit of a reddish sheen on the writing, which is quite impressive. My drip is very shiny. And I haven't dared do this yet, so I'm doing it now for you. Still a little tacky to the touch. Interestingly, which is going to come up, well, you've already seen the video, comes up in another video this week where I review this notebook. No bleed through there. That's pretty incredible. So anyway, I just thought you would like to see the results of such wet writing on this paper, which I think will be quite good to put into my video where I review the notebook, which I did, and it's already there and you already know that, but this is the footage before I touched it. So that said, let's dive into our video. So if videos like this where I talk about fountain pens and inks and paper are of interest to you, please feel free to subscribe. And if you'd like to talk about a particular pen that I brought up or a pen that you enjoy, please feel free to comment below. I love interacting with my viewers. So here, let's take a look at the pens that are in use this week. First, I have the Cora, which thanks to some information from a viewer in the Netherlands, I know a bit more about the origins of this pen. Maybe not as much as I'd like, but a lot more than I did. Beside it, this week today, I was demonstrating diffusion to my freshmen, and I always just put a couple drops of fountain pen ink into a beaker and let it diffuse for a while they're distracted. So, pull out my Lamy 2000, nothing. It had run dry. I mean, I'd written with it a little, but it was empty. So I was on grace. Pulled out my Platinum President, empty. Pulled out, I forget what the other pen was. Anyway, I went through 3 pens before the 4th one finally had enough ink in it to drip. So I decided I didn't do my normal Christmas time clean out of the Lamy 2000, so it's getting it now. And I have said since I got it that this pen, this Kaweco this Kaweco V14S, I'm thinking of a totally different pen. This Kaweco V14S could easily be my daily writer. So I decided to use it as such for a while. I have a Delike of some kind here. I'll get back to you on that when I do the video, or when I get to the pen. I have my Waterman Hemisphere. I have an interesting pen that actually was suggested by a viewer. This is a Super Rotax, which is a German make from the 70s. I have a Sheaffer Imperial 2 Deluxe. You may have actually seen this one reviewed on Troy LaPlante's channel this week. I have the same pen, actually. Mine is black, his is, I forget, not black. Beside it, I have my Montblanc Monte Rosa student pen, which is awesome. Beside that, here is an interesting set. These are all Soviet pens of various stripes. So this first one, this metal one, is a Soyuz AP, luxury fountain pen. I have to look, I'm sorry, I cannot get these in my head yet. This one beside it is a Yaroslavl from the 80s. And then this last one looks like it may have actually been made in Bulgaria. It is a Pobeda 63. So now that you've seen the pens in use, let's actually put them to use and see how they write. My first pen in use will be reviewed next week. Like I said, I still don't know enough, but I feel like I'm just ready to review it. This is a Netherlands pen from the 1950s. This is a Cora. You can see A little bit of branding engraved on the barrel here. That's it. And from the research, it sounds like it's actually was made in Germany, which I'll get into that when I do the video. 14 karat. And whatever the symbol there is. So this is a Cora from the Netherlands. This was a student pen, apparently, or at least a low-cost pen, let's say. Surprisingly, with a gold nib. The ink in it is Robert Oster, even though it's winter. I went with a summer storm. One of my favorite Robert Oster inks, actually. Let's see, putting this puppy in the way keeps the page from flopping around like a dead jellyfish. All right, so my temporary replacement, oops. So in the midst of trading pens, I accidentally stopped my sound recording. But anyway, my next pen is a Kaweco V14S, which I've said would be a wonderful daily writer. Except, it's a screw cap, not a slip cap, but details. Speaking of details, V14S. The S refers to the stainless steel cap. The pen does come with a gold nib. Not a flexible nib at all, but that's not what this pen is for. This pen is for writing in small notebooks. And I just misspelled Kaweco. There is actually a connection between these two pens, which I will bring up when I review the Cora next week. The ink, I decided not to go with my Daily Writer ink. I decided to go do something wild. So I put in Kyonooto Nurebairo, which I totally butchered how that's pronounced, and I apologize. It's kind of a vaguely sheening black. Next pen is a really cool looking pen. I mean, pretty. This is a Delike. No clip on it, which is kind of interesting. A very, very attractive finish. A little bit of chatoyancy there. This is a Delike Smurfs resin acrylic, for whatever that's worth. And after I write, I'll show you something cool about the nib. I think it's Smurfs resin, but anyway. So remember I said there's something cool about the nib, and maybe you were able to tell from the writing, but possibly not. The nib is bent. It actually is listed as a bent nib. So it's kind of like one of those Fude nibs, but not quite as extreme. So this is a fine, nor is it an extra fine. Extra fine, I'm glad I looked. Extra fine, bent nib. And if you've ever written with a Fude nib, they give you kind of a unique character, but can be kind of a pain. Here with a much smaller, that's very interesting. And the ink is also interesting. It's a Atramentis. Red Roses, which is a scented ink. It actually does smell a lot like red roses to me, which a lot of the scented inks really smell nothing like what they're supposed to be, so I guess that's a good thing. Next pen. Waterman Hemisphere, how about that? Not an exciting pen, but a decent, reliable pen. And it's a good pen for this interesting ink. So the ink is Noodlers. Which, as always, is a very vibrant color. So the Super Rotax actually came out of a question from a viewer. Didn't make it in my Q&A for obvious reasons. They asked me what my opinion was of the Rotax, and I go, duh. I had no idea. I'd never even heard of them. So I went and did some research, and I thought, well, that's an interesting looking pen. It's squared off on the cap and squared off on the filling knob. Nothing too remarkable about it. Looks a lot like some of my other pens of this era. So it's a Super Rotax. It's very fine. I don't know the actual nib size, so we'll just go with that. The ink is Noodler's Dragon's Napalm, an ink I haven't used in a while. I like it. Reminds me of the old Mercurochrome that they used to put on your cuts. So it'll be interesting getting to know this pen. Then I get to the pen that Troy LaPlante and I both have been showing. My review is not published and won't be for some time yet. Like him, I have a Triumph nib. So this is a Sheaffer. I can't remember. Imperial 2 Deluxe. I have a fine nib on mine. And the ink is J.Herbin. J.Herbin. Bleu. Myosotis. Directly following, still with some ink in it, a Montblanc Monte Rosa with the diamond-shaped ink windows. Keep in mind, this was sold as a student pen. And what was it, a fine? I think so. Extra fine it's listed as. Kind of, I would say, a rather wide extra fine. And the ink is Kyo-iro, which has actually come out. Them and Kyonooto have come out with several new colors, which when winter gets over, I think I'll be spending some money. Right at this exact moment, it is cold and I don't want to risk it. The temperatures here are going to drop down into the negatives tonight. And I don't mean negatives Celsius, I mean negatives in Fahrenheit. Which is darn cold. So then I get to my Soviet pens. Always interesting. This one is actually, of them all, the most high quality feeling. And it's listed as a luxury pen, for whatever that's worth. Pull off the cap. The nib is a bit different from any of my other Soviet pens. It's actually kind of flexible, although it was described by the seller as being plated steel. It does have a fairly typical Soviet, do we call it a captured converter or filling mechanism? I'm not sure. So anyway, this is a Soyuz. Definitely has some line variation to it. Soyuz AP. It's a luxury fountain pen. And the ink is Monteverde. Turquoise. Following that, another Soviet-era pen. This one is listed as being from the 80s. It's a Yaroslavl. I can't find much branding on this pen. But you pull it open. This pen, well, took some cleaning. Bits and pieces of chunky ink came out. Again, that same sort of filling mechanism that I've found on several of my Soviet pens, including a number that don't work. So far, fingers crossed, this one has worked. So this is a Yaroslavl. I know nothing else about it, so we'll just name the ink in very capitalist Montblanc Black, which is an ink that was actually given to me some time back. Don't use it very often, but I thought, what the heck. I was actually trying to get a lubricating ink into several of these, and I don't remember if this one's a lubricating ink, but I thought maybe it was. I know the Monteverde is, and I know this next one is. So this next pen, I need to learn more about it. The branding on it. Right there. Now, that looks like Cyrillic writing. I can't quite make it out clearly enough to be certain. So, I'll be spending some time with a magnifying glass to figure that out before I do a review. The fit and finish, some parts fit oddly. It's actually a piston filler, more traditional sort of piston, kind of a marbly finish. I think I could do more to clean the outside. Screw cap. The nib is nothing to write home about, haha. Just a fairly straightforward steel nib. Rather generous ink window, though. So, for lack of a better name, we're going to call it a Pobeda 63. You may notice that this ink is writing a little bit dark for what it is. I'll tell you what it is in a second. It is Pelikan version Bulgarian, whatever that means. This is how it was sold to me. This is a pens in use. You are seeing some pens that this is its first inking, and I don't know much about it. So when I review it, I will know more, but at this point, I do not. So I'd welcome any information. The ink in it may seem like a strange choice. I put in Noodler's Rattler Eel Red for two reasons. One reason is it is a lubricated ink, that's what the eel means, to help the parts move more smoothly. Another reason is Noodler's Rattler Eel Red, from my experience and what I've read, is actually a pretty good ink for cleaning out pens. So I decided, let's clean this puppy out. And it always starts dark. And it was really dark the very first time I wrote with it. I mean, in my ink journal here, where I keep in track of pens, maybe you can make out that the P on the Pobeda is purple. So yeah, I did a lot of cleaning on that pen using cleaner and everything, and still needed some work. So that's why I like that ink. It's a good one for cleaning out a pen. It even has removed some stains. Not all, but it has removed stains from a few pens. So those are the pens I have in use this week. Which one was your favorite? Feel free to comment below. I would love to hear anything you know about Soviet pens, or since I'm filming this review soon, it's going to be published next week, I would really love to hear anything you know about that Cora. So, anyway, I don't have anything too extra to add this week. It's just kind of a busy week for me. As I'm filming this, I'm filming it early in the week because, well, Friday, I'm unlikely to spend very much time at home at all. And Saturday, I will not spend much time at home at all, so my first chance to be home will be Sunday. So if I don't get to your comments, hey, that would be why. But anyway, as always, I thank you for watching. If you like videos like this, where you look at fountain pens, both new and old, and paper and inks, please subscribe. And if anything in this video struck your fancy and you'd like to comment about it, please feel free to comment below. So I thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.